So let me get this straight. An Atlanta appeals judge was accused for having sex with a police chief in the court chambers. This doesn't make sense. I mean, bro, I can see this spinning off to a whole mini series. I can see this spinning off to a documentary series and everything. We'll call it Law and Oral. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump back into these clips, dog.
Most people would be fired for having sex on the job, but it's not that simple for an Atlanta federal district court judge. She reportedly had sex with an Atlanta police officer, and it happened in her chambers, not far from staff. Now she's benched as investigators look into the extramarital affair. Law clerks reported overhearing the encounters multiple times. Security footage and logs show the officer frequently visited the judge's chambers in uniform around lunchtime. The judge initially denied the allegations, but she later admitted to the relationship. The police department hasn't said whether the officer faces internal disciplinary action or if he still works there. But keep in mind, federal judges receive lifetime appointments under the U.S. Constitution and can only be removed from office through impeachment. Download Fox Local for updates on this case and more.
This is the behavior that results in a private reprimand without naming the judge. Six separate law clerks say that they heard sounds consistent with sexual activity coming from the judge's chamber during work hours when a high-ranking member of the police department visited the judge. They went so far as to remove cushions from the couch to test it for material, which did come back negative. The Judicial Conduct Commissioner equivalent did find that they had a 2-year extramarital affair, that the relationship demonstrated a gross lack of judgment and made everyone uncomfortable in the workplace for these law clerks. They also found that this federal judge conducting this behavior opened herself up to potential extortion for both her and the law enforcement officer. They also found that she violated the code of ethics by attending a partisan election event. She lied to the investigating body about these allegations. And yet the only consequence was that a private reprimand without naming the name of the judge was issued. And the judge had to write apology letters to the poor clerks that had to listen to her have sex in chambers. Unbelievable to me that this behavior warrants a private reprimand. What would a judge have to do to have actual consequences?
Now, look, I'm not quite sure if those sounds coming from the chambers was actually very accurate or fake or whatever it is, but man, this police chief was was just putting her through the death up in that thing. I'm sure, man. Like, I just don't understand the audacity and the brass to do it in like everybody's in the hallways, man. Like, you've seen the clip, like, man, in any courtroom or courthouse, man, those hallways are big, the echoes are happening and everything, right? And then not so many times, why is the police chief always going to appeals judge? Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just throwing flags a lot of times. That's why you see clerks coming up and saying, hey, this was happening, this was gonna happening all the time.
Ranking police officer. Employees interviewed during the investigation described multiple incidents where they allegedly heard people having sex through the walls. One court clerk testified to hearing what was described as unsettling noises, kissing, and music coming from the judge's chambers.
Why should the everyday person care about these allegations?
The American legal system depends on honesty and truthfulness.
This investigative report did not identify the judge or the officer, but multiple sources confirmed to Channel 2 that federal judge Eleanor Ross and Atlanta Police Deputy Chief Kelly Collier were the two accused. In the complaint, the judge's employee said she attended a primary election victory party for a district attorney on May 21st, 2024. A source provided Channel 2 this photo showing Ross at that party. The order also says the judge presided over a hearing the following day. Channel 2 obtained federal court records showing Ross presided over a supervised release hearing on May 22nd, 2024. And regarding the officer, the chief judge...
The credibility is the most important thing for the jurist.
Attorney Musa Ghanayem was surprised to learn about the troubling allegations involving an Atlanta-based circuit court judge. A judicial council decided that judge would receive a, quote, private reprimand for engaging in an affair with a sworn police officer inside her judge's chambers. Court documents show employees reported hearing the sexual encounters on more than one occasion. Ghanayem says the salacious nature of the case isn't as disturbing as what the report also claims, that the judge initially lied about the allegations.
If you have a judge who engages in that kind of conduct in the courthouse during business hours and then gives false statements when confronted about it, that person has demonstrated the very thing that this judicial committee had already found, that there was a gross lack of judgment. And, she's a judge.
Atlanta News First has not been able to independently confirm the identities of the judge or the officer, but the Atlanta Police Department told us they are opening an investigation to see if the officer named in the report works for them. Federal judges enjoy lifetime appointments, often shielding them from public scrutiny when ethical issues arise.
When you have a lifetime appointment, you're able to avoid any sort of public and any sort of private scrutiny. And that's something that's very important. And I think this is just another example of why we have to revisit that.
All right, guys, here's another chief of police and a judge in hot water. And are you surprised at this point? This is the third this week that I'm exposing on this page, the third police chief for bad behavior, and a judge who is involved in it as well. If at this point in society you don't understand that the people running the show in society, in our country at least, and probably other countries, are the worst of the worst. They are bad people. They are not good people. They have no respect for anybody else. They're selfish. They abuse their power. And this is happening everywhere. And the biggest problem is that there's no accountability. In this case, the article talks about how the judge was reprimanded, but they don't tell you how. They don't tell you what the consequence is, whether she's going to be held accountable or not. And the reality is these people should be fired. We talk about cops getting fired for stuff all the time. Low-level cops, street cops. They want to bury these people. They want to put these people in jail. They want to ruin their lives, take everything from them. But look at what they're doing at the top. The people at the top should be held to the highest standard. We have this talk all the time about standards in terms of your job status, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think that everybody should be held to the highest standard in society, and we all should be doing the right thing. But unfortunately, that's not how society works. And individuals like this really should be held to the highest standard because they have a higher powered position. They have more ability to ruin people's lives and put them in jail, take their jobs, things of that nature. And they're doing worse. And there's no accountability held. None. They get to just resign or they get a slap on the wrist and you never hear about it again. And what happens? Does anybody really learn their lesson when that's the case? No. So society really needs to start exposing these people more. We need to start really requesting more accountability and stop allowing these individuals to manipulate you into thinking that they are great people, because the majority of these people at the top go on TV, they put on this act like they're great people, but they are the worst of the worst.
Sometimes I like to think that police chiefs can almost get away with anything, man. Police chiefs can almost get away with anything. And sheriffs and all that sort of stuff, they feel like they're above the law. You get what I'm saying? No one's going to really tell them anything. Who's really going to stand up to the sheriff for the whole county? Who's going to stand up to the chief of police? Nobody's really saying. They might say some, snicker around your back, but no one's really playing those type of games with the police chief. That's crazy.
The federal judge is still on the bench here at the courthouse, while Atlanta police say they have launched an investigation. The judge in the middle of this misconduct scandal is still on the bench here at the Richard B. Russell Federal Courthouse. The Judicial Council reprimanded the judge back in February for judicial misconduct. Last week, a special committee confirmed their decision. This all came to light because several of the judge's law clerks started complaining. The Judicial Council says in its report that the judge engaged in an extramarital affair with a high-ranking police officer. The Associated Press and Fox 5 have learned that officer is a commander with the Atlanta Police Department. The law clerks reported that the federal judge and the commander repeatedly had sexual intercourse in the judge's chambers during business hours within earshot of the clerks. The Judicial Council goes on to say when the judge was first asked about this, she lied and denied it, calling the allegations outrageous and baseless. But she later recanted and admitted to her involvement. The report indicates the commander frequented the federal courthouse in uniform during lunchtime. A special committee investigated and interviewed 6 former law clerks, reviewed surveillance footage and sign-in logs, reviewed relevant documents, emails, and text messages, and affirmed the affair and inappropriate sexual activity did in fact occur. According to the Judicial Council, the judge was privately reprimanded and agreed to write 6 letters of apology to her former law clerks, forego service as a chief judge, and indefinitely refuse refrain from serving on any judicial conference committees. A special committee explained that it had carefully considered more severe sanctions, but decided against that because the judge corrected her false statements, ended her relationship with the commander, and had otherwise had a clean record and rendered exemplary service to the court. And this is a federal judge, which means this is a lifetime appointment, and the only way she can be removed is by Congress.
Look, at the end of the day, this was probably one of the most unprofessional things to do, man. You got a police chief and a high-ranking judge doing things in court, in the courthouse with people around, and they were doing it several times. I can only imagine, how people were feeling working around it. They probably were feeling tense. They probably were feeling like, man, they don't want to be here. But the crazy thing is, how is she not fired? Like, she's putting investigations and all this other stuff, because anybody else would have been gone, got terminated. So I just don't understand what she has on these people. You get what I'm saying? She might have some skeletons. She definitely has some info on some people that, yeah. She's definitely tied in. She's tied into the network. We already know what's going on. But leave your thoughts below, man. Like, what do you do in this situation? How can you go to appeals just now with this rep and actually feel like she can confidently take care of your case? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and I'll chat with you there.